Harakiri is a film that came out in 1962 that's directed by Masaki Kobayashi. So Harakiri is a $50 Patreon request that comes from no other than Perry Perez. And I was so happy that Perry requested this film because this is a film that I've been dying to see for a long time now, at least 3 or 4 years now. This is a film that people give lots of praise to. I mean, people praise this film to high heaven. Everybody in the Discord really loves this film, at least the ones who have seen it. Which, by the way, $5 a month on Patreon gets you access to the Discord. Think about it. So Harakiri overall is just one of those well-renowned classic Japanese films that I just haven't got around to seeing yet. And now, after seeing Harakiri, this is one of the most masterful films that I've ever seen in my entire life. This is a film that not only do I consider, at least from what I've seen so far, to be one of the greatest Japanese films that I've ever seen in my life, but it's also just one of the greatest films I've ever seen in general. Honestly, I'd go as far to say that this is the best Japanese film that I've ever seen. And I know that's saying a lot because I've seen a nice handful of Akira Kurosawa films. I've seen a few Kenichi Shindo films. So yeah, I'd put Harakiri above any of the Japanese films that I've seen so far in my life, even above Seven Samurai. I know it's probably a hot take, but this film was truly masterful from every single angle that I could think of. This film is an incredibly timeless piece of filmmaking. In pretty much every regard in terms of its theme, that has to do with the class divide in Japan, and not only Japan, but really any society that contains an elite ruling class over the average worker, which was almost every society that's ever existed throughout human history. But yeah, not only in its theme do I feel like it's incredibly relevant and timeless, but just the way this film looks and the way that audiences would find engagement in it. Because it's this film's storytelling ability, it's the way that the characters are written, and again, just the aesthetic value of this film is incredibly relevant and timeless. I mean, this film, in terms of its cinematography, is framed to perfection. I mean, every single shot in this film has so much intention behind it, had so much thought and creativity poured into it. I mean, every single scene in this film, you can tell that the filmmaker really thought long and hard about how he was going to capture this moment. Whether it's a slow-paced or fast-paced use of zoom-ins and zoom-outs, whether it's the slow or fast-paced use of panning, whether it's the use of score throughout certain moments. And again, it's all just framed so beautifully. There are so many shots in this film that I really couldn't believe was shot back in 1962. I mean, it's so ahead of its time. I mean, one of my favorite shots in this film that kind of had me in awe was this wide-angle shot of the forest. And it's basically a shot that's building up to this big sword fight scene in the third act. And, I mean, it's that kind of imagery that just completely blows me away. I mean, it's masterfully crafted stuff. So yeah, I really can't praise the aesthetic value of this film enough. I mean, to me, it's absolutely breathtaking. And, I mean, that goes far as the direction, too. I mean, the direction has a huge part of what breathes creativity into this film and makes it so engaging from start to finish. But, yeah, even beyond the spectacular direction and the absolutely breathtaking and timeless aesthetic value, the storytelling, the character writing, and the acting is also just on a whole other level. I absolutely love the way that this film introduces characters and also slowly gives away information to the audience. Because there are characters in this film, one in particular that I have in mind. He's essentially the son-in-law of the main character, and once the film presents what exactly happens to his character, you at first believe that he has this cowardly element to his character, but as the story begins to unravel and a bunch of new information starts being revealed to the audience, you definitely view his character in an entirely different way. It just goes to show that how important context is in regards to judging a certain character or even judging someone in general. But yeah, as I mentioned, I also really love the narrative structure to this film because essentially throughout the entire film, we have the main character that in front of all these samurai in preparation to commit harakiri, he basically goes into detail of his life in regards to what led up to this point. And again, it's just one of those things to where slowly but surely, the more that you learn about his character and his dynamic and relationship with other characters, the more compelling and complex the entire situation becomes. And it's through this main character and the relationship, and it's through this main character and the dynamics that he shares with everyone around him that it's able to explore all of its themes. And the film is able to express all of these themes in such a compelling and powerful way. because this film is basically a heroic tale of the average worker kind of rising against the elite. And even though that in a way this is a hopeful story that celebrates the power of courage and dignity, it's also a type of tragic story because by the end of this film, promise I won't spoil anything, but it basically just goes to show that those who are in power and those who are essentially considered to be the top 1% of society, they control the narrative. They're the ones who are writing history, and whatever they write down is what we learned in the history books. And it's just tragic that human dishonesty and our tendency to have a lack of accountability, especially if you know that you have the power to make sure that your image looks as best as possible, basically makes it to where we are never going to get an actual objective account of almost anything historical. Not saying that we can't be fairly certain of a lot of different things that we know to be historically accurate, but it really just gets you to think more about the high possibility of what you read in history books is probably not going to be fully true. But I mean, on another note, the action sequences in this film are just beautiful stuff. I mean, the first thing that we see is a character committing harakiri with a bamboo sword, and that shit is so brutal. I mean, the way that it's captured is, again, so incredibly timeless. I mean, you really feel the character's pain in that moment. And again, it's because of the filmmaker's ability to capture this type of moment and be so convincing about it. But also just the sword fight sequences, which we mostly get in the third act of the film, are just so entertaining to watch. And it's because it's choreographed incredibly well, but again, also just captured well through the framing and through the lighting and just everything, all aspects of filmmaking involved. I mean, it's just everything came together to capture something that is so breathtaking and so engaging and so compelling in so many different ways. And again, I just really love the way that it's explored its themes. I think one of the most compelling ones has to do with how the samurai elite culture, in terms of the honor that they propose to have, is a bit of an illusion. And that's expressed through a really crucial thing that happens in the ending of the film that is symbolic, and it's really compelling stuff the way it's handled. So overall, I couldn't have asked a filmmaker to capture anything better than what I saw. I mean, from every aspect of filmmaking, it was just firing on all cylinders. And I've already rewatched this film 2 or 3 times, and it just only gets better on rewatch. So I'm going to give Harakiri a 10 out of 10. Yeah, this film is just so engaging. It's so much fun to watch, but at the same time is incredibly meaningful, and I just love filmmaking like this. But that's all I gotta say about Harakiri. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, just give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.